So Gen 8 has finally arrived in the form of Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I've put about 30 hours into it so far, so I think I can offer up some honest opinions. Firstly, let's get the pre-release controversy out of the way. News came out months before release that Pokemon Sword and Shield titles would release without national dex, thus limiting the available usable Pokemon of the game to 400 out of the nearly 900 in existence. This obviously angered many fans because it was likely that many of their favorites wouldn't be included. Developers explained the reasoning behind this decision by stating that having to create new animations for the sheer amount of species combined with the need to develop new features, preserve game balance, and maintain a degree of quality made it infeasible to include all Pokemon given the Switch's hardware limitations. Did this explanation satisfy Pokemon fans? Hell no. In fact, many saw it as a confirmation of laziness and a sacrifice that was made to rush the game out for their traditional November release. Fuel was added to the fire when it was revealed that Game Freak actually reused models from previous games instead of building them from scratch, as previously implied. So here's my stance on the issue. No national dex sucks, and Game Freak's dishonesty about it was gross and should be criticized. That being said, I disagree with the torch and pitchfork boycott mentality many fans had. Ultimately, what a person does with their own wallet and how they personally spend money is their business, and if they refuse to buy a game because of the aforementioned controversies, that's completely fine. But this brought many folks to review bomb these games with extremely low negative reviews out of pure spite and refuse to allow themselves to play this game with an open mind and allow themselves to enjoy it for what the game is and not the controversy surrounding it. So first of all, I honestly thoroughly enjoyed Pokemon Sword and Shield to a pretty great extent. Does it have its flaws? Absolutely it does. It's not a perfect game, and no national dex is part of that reason, among others. But I had a blast, and I was hooked from the beginning. So I went into this game like I went into every Pokemon game before, essentially with a blind approach. I didn't dig too far into the leaks. I didn't read too much information about gameplay. I kind of wanted to be fairly surprised. I wanted to discover everything as it unfolded during gameplay. I knew the legendaries, I knew the starters, and I, unfortunately, knew the starter evolutions. I knew the region, I watched the trailer, and that was about it. I know it sounds like a lot, but there was so much leaked, so much revealed beforehand, but I ignored all that. But everything else was going to be discovered during gameplay, and I'm glad I went in with that approach. Because from the beginning, I felt like a kid playing Pokemon games again. Felt that childhood wonder and nostalgia of what it felt like playing Pokemon as a kid come flooding back to me with every new Pokemon I'd encounter, every new town I'd arrive in, and after every new character I'd come across. Now don't get me wrong, it has its negatives. The textures and graphics of landscaping in a lot of areas are just horrendously ugly. The post-game is also quite underwhelming. Like, not bad, but I just wish there was more. The legendaries are sort of cool, but there's like no hunt or challenge to finding them and catching them. They just sort of kind of fall into your lap. Additionally, I really miss having good villains like Team Rocket just crashing my momentum and causing chaos that would like briefly take me off my linear path of beating gyms and just give me something different to do for a bit. Like Team Yell was supposed to be this generation's version of like Team Rocket and Team Aqua and Magma and all that. But and they were fine, I guess, but they just didn't do it for me. They weren't really like, they just kind of like jumped in front of you and like, hey, you're not fighting Marty, you're gonna fight us, and then you'd beat them and they'd be gone. They didn't. There was no like, hey, you got to go to this power plant and like, cause they're in there and they're like stopping everything from power going to the towns or whatever like that. So you got to go defeat them all and kick them out of there. None of that. It was just like, hey, we're in your way, beat us, and then you beat them and they're gone and you just move on. So that kind of fell flat for me. But I mean, they weren't, like I said, they weren't horrible, but I wish there was something like better. I wish it was better. Now the positives firmly outweigh the negatives in my opinion though. Many of the towns are extremely unique and aesthetically gorgeous. I often found myself like rushing through the routes because I was excited to see the next town I'd arrive in. Like Balanlea is incredible. I love the medieval feel of Hammerlock, and the relaxing snowy environment of Circhester was really nice and pleasant. I ended up staying there for a long time. That being said, it's extremely disappointing that these beautiful, extremely creative town designs are hurt so much by how little there is to do and explore in many of the towns, especially like some of the best ones. The best ones seem to be the most lacking and most frustrating. Like they are often beautiful but bare bones and don't offer much to explore and experience. Kind of feels like you're like there, you're immersed in this cool aesthetic environment, and then you just quickly run out of things to do and you're on to the next one. On another note, I really like some of the new Pokemon as well. Like Wooloo is a legend, Sobble is a tearful treasure, Corviknight is just cool, Yamper is my zappy puppy companion, Dragapult is a super turbo cool design, and Toxtricity is like one of the few poison type Pokemon I've ever enjoyed using. And, and there's also an Apple Dragon type Pokemon, so yeah, a lot to like there. I also enjoyed gym battles way more than I ever have in Sword and Shield compared to past titles. Gym battles now consist of like obliterating like a gym leader inside a giant stadium in front of a rowdy chanting audience instead of like the back room of a Planet Fitness with no witnesses or anything. It felt like a bigger, more significant kind of thing. Gym battles had like the sort of pomp and circumstance they should have always had all along. I also really like Dynamaxing actually, and I appreciate the fact that every Pokemon is capable of Dynamaxing instead of just a select few, as in like the case with Mega Evolutions. Not saying that I think Dynamaxing is better than Mega Evolutions, because I don't think I do, but I don't know, that's a debate for another time. But I do appreciate that aspect of Dynamaxing in comparison. It also gave like gym battles a bit more of an epic kind of feel to them, you know? Like it made them stand out a bit more from like traditional trainer battles, and I do appreciate that about it as well. Now, personally, in-game music never really makes or breaks a game for me, but holy hell, the soundtrack in Sword and Shield is so fucking good. The Slumbering Wheel theme is super cool and memorable, especially like when the violins come raging in. The battle theme that plays when you battle Marnie absolutely freaking shreds, and I love it. And spoiler incoming in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The battle theme with Rose gave me super Dark Souls vibes, and I loved it. The gym battle music also definitely helped amp up the hype of the battle, and is really good and fits really well with the crowd noise and the whole like intensity of Dynamaxing. It's honestly one of my favorite video game soundtracks I've ever heard, and definitely my favorite of the Pokemon series. Now I have 2 video game soundtracks on my MP3 player that I listen to in my car. The first one is Animal Crossing. The second one is Pokemon Sword and Shield. So, yeah, it's pretty damn good. The wild area in the game is also just loaded with Pokemon and areas to explore, and it's just an overall cool experience in the game. Like, I always had like an absolute blast just killing a few hours, just wandering around, catching Pokemon and exploring the area. Like, you could just easily kill like hours and hours just grinding, leveling up your Pokemon, adding Pokemon to your team or whatever. There's so much to explore. It's huge, expansive. It's great. It's a shining spot in the game for sure. Also, the camping feature is a blast, and I honestly spent a little more time than I'd like to admit watching my Pokemon play and just falling in love with the adorable little interactions you could have with your Pokemon. I know I'm losing masculinity points by admitting that, but I don't care. I enjoyed it. I didn't delve too much into the curry making stuff, so I can't speak too much on that, but it's fine from what I experienced. I just didn't care to really mess around with it that much. Characters are like mostly hit or miss in my opinion. Like Hop started out almost unbearable actually, but I started to enjoy his character arc as the game went on a little bit more. Marnie is great. She's a great rival. She's got like an interesting character and backstory with good character development throughout the game. She's like motivated to beat you, but like never really intervenes too much or impedes progress or anything like that. So it's like perfect medium. I really liked Sonya as well, but I think that's mostly because of like her dedication, like, and constantly giving me free revives, and also like her ever so endearing like hair twirling she always did. She's great. The gym leaders are all fairly interesting, and some have like decent backstories. What's really cool is you get like little trainer cards before facing them that gives you like some information about them, and I love little stuff like that. Some are memorable, but others are quite forgettable. Also, Leon is like so fucking anime in his design, and I love every bit of it. His look is like way over the top and ridiculously stupid, and I love it. It's perfect. Now, the storyline and the plot are fine. Like, the storyline in Shield and Sword is it's very Pokemon, I guess you could say. It's kind of campy and over the top, a little bit absurd, compelling at times, but also drags on at other times. It doesn't really like add to or take away from the overall experience. It's just kind of there. And I don't ask for much of a story in Pokemon because the story pretty much is always there. It writes itself, basically. You be a young kid starting out as a Pokemon trainer, end up being like a savant-like prodigy. You catch every Pokemon and just destroy everyone in your path. That's it. But they always have to add like a little something more to the story, though. And I appreciate that as like a way of keeping it fresh and unique in each game. But it's always secondary to the main plot of just being the best Pokemon trainer. So the storyline never really like makes or breaks the game for me, and I never really typically put a lot of thought or judgment into it one way or the other. I think it's fine. It's fine in Shield and Sword. Nothing to write home about, nothing to criticize either. So ultimately, while the negatives in Pokemon Sword and Shield are present, noticeable, and do indeed bring the game's quality down, the parts which are great, it really nails successfully, I think. Like the gym battles, environment, music, characters, and Pokemon design are all great and very well done. There is an extremely significant amount of aspects to like about Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I absolutely think it's a very good game. Heck, I may even consider it a great game. That being said, its flaws and the controversy surrounding it are fair and absolutely cannot be ignored or swept under the rug, as they do serve as a detriment to the overall quality of the title itself. However, if you look at Pokemon Sword and Shield as a whole from the ground up, I think it's a very enjoyable experience. Now, not to flex my age on you guys, but I've been playing Pokemon since Red and Blue, so that opinion is coming from that perspective, and it might be different from more casual fans, or even fans out there that are even more diehard and dedicated than myself. Ultimately, this is a game that I had so much trouble putting down, like legit. Many hours of sleep were sacrificed because of this game, even despite its notable flaws. So, here we go. Pokemon Sword and Shield gets a solid 8 out of 10 for me. It's a very solid game in my opinion. Just go into it knowing its flaws. Like, the game will undoubtedly exclude some of your favorites, but just look at that as an opportunity to gain new favorites and develop a love and attachment for other Pokemon you never may have considered before. For example, I've never used a Sylveon before in a Pokemon game until I played through Sword and Shield, and now she's one of my favorites. The game still has 400 Pokemon, which is still more than any game before, like Gen 4, I believe. But I get it. It has less to do with the number and more to do with knowing what you could and should have available, and that's the most disappointing aspect. And I'm with you on that. I get it. But if you go into this game wanting to have fun and wanting to like it despite its flaws, I really think you will. Temper your expectations, but also lower your pitchforks. Play Pokemon as if you were a kid again. Discover new Pokemon. Laugh at the ridiculous ones, because there are plenty of those. But just let yourself have fun, but also don't force yourself to. There are plenty of valid reasons to dislike this game, and if you hate it, I get it. However, I believe that if most Pokemon fans jump into the game just wanting to have a fun and enjoyable Pokemon experience, I think Pokemon Shield and Sword will give them that. Now, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. This is my first ever review, so let me know how I did. I'll probably do a lot more in the future because I had a blast doing this. I like talking about video games. So shower me with your criticisms, disagreements, and death threats because I want the full YouTuber experience, so I'll feel like I'm missing out without the harassment and constant threats of murder. So please lay it all on me. Take care, guys, and thanks for watching. Bye.